My country people, I bring on another matter come again. Oh, our good luck Jonathan and Ibrahim Babangida admit, they accept, they recognize, and they talk and say they know there was a flaw in the electoral process of the presidential 2023 election. Say they know, but may Nigeria accept the president where they elect or where they select right there. Make Nigeria accept them. Oh, the question I be say, so una know, say una do wuru wuru and wayo wayo, but you guys are trying to conceal it and let bygone be bygone. I pay my people, mokuna watch video, mokuna see the evidence.
The president-elect, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, and the vice president-elect, Senator Shetima, their own mood is slightly different because President Buhari has graciously served 8 years. God has helped him serve 8 years. And he's handing over, not to another political party, but he's handing over to his own political party. So the circumstances presently is quite different. But I know the mood of the country generally is because of the issues bordering on the elections. So some people are happy, some people are sad, so all kinds of sentiments and feelings. In my own time, especially the 2015 election, my ministers, my senior officers, people who worked with me, there was this fear that this one that we've lost the election, what will be our fate? Will the new government just throw all of us into jail without giving us even fair hearing? Because government is next to God and decide to do anything. That fear was in the minds of people. Some people feel, could I even run away? Should I stay in the country? But to them, that will not be much of a problem because it's the same party that has taken over. So the tension we faced then, the Buhari's team may not face the same tension. Yes, some few people may have some issues that bother them, but on the average, they will not have that kind of feeling. But it used to be tense, really. And by this time, then of course already I've considered defeat to the president. So that was completely over. And I knew why I considered defeat, because I was more interested in the country than myself, which I advise every politician to be more interested in the country than themselves. Without a country, there will be no president. So I know it used to be tense.
And how do we ensure that Nigeria comes out of the current electoral controversy through reforms that will help grow the country's democracy?
The problem we have is the electoral management body, Inec, and the security. And I used to give an example. If two soccer teams are playing and the referee decides to look the other way, they will enjoy themselves. If people are contesting for elections, you should expect that it's like a soccer game. Everybody wants to win. And you must not allow it. The electoral management bodies share more than 60% of the blame. Because if they do their work well, the politicians will have no choice than to follow the rules. They, the security, and the courts. I believe one day we'll get there, but I feel sad now that our electoral process is still wobbling. So we have migrated from candidate to beaver, which is a superior technology. Why do we still have problems? Manual voting, we have problems in this country. Electronic, we have. So where is the problem coming from? Is the independent the electoral management bodies, Inec in this case. Inec has to sit up so that they will not throw this country into conflagration one day. And people must be serious. And Inec must sit up. We should commission one of these internationally known IT companies. They will want to protect their image and allow them to build a system for us and also manage it during our elections. We can train our people, but they should manage it. That this last election, they say, oh, one director in charge of IT did this or did not do that. If you bring Google or one of these giants and they agree to build it and manage it for you, there will be nobody in Nigeria will not be involved. So it should be completely neutral. And probably when we get to that level where all those who have smartphones will not need to go to any place to vote. You bring out the, take it, go to your unit, and press the button and you vote. You can vote in your kitchen, you can vote in your bedroom, you can vote in your sitting room, you can vote in your car. Even if you're in the US, you can vote.
And the outcome of the 2023 presidential election is being challenged in very controversial circumstances, just like that of 2007 that brought you and later President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua to power. Any advice to share on the best ways to resolve electoral disputes without plunging the country into a crisis, especially for those who are in court challenging the victory of Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
When I took that decision, was not too exposed to the global election processes, and especially in Africa. And since I left office, I've been leading election observation missions. Even this year, I'm going to lead the African Union team to Zimbabwe, and the elections will come up. They already gave me the letter pending when the government would fix the date for the election. So I've been involved in a number of elections now. But one thing about Nigeria, which I believe we must correct, and which a decision I took when I was the vice president, that if I have the opportunity to be corrected, is this idea of conduct of elections. Probably that made me to appoint somebody I did not even know to be the electoral umpire. And a number of people say you did the wrong thing. Some people felt, well, you wanted to correct something. I feel worried that in Nigeria, our elections are still so controversial. We have not accepted our electoral results. We are the giant of Africa. If we have not gone to the moon, then at least we should be in position to lead Africa in terms of democracy. We should be able to conduct free and fair elections that other African countries say, look, why not do what Nigeria has done? Why not all of us behave like Nigerians in terms of conducting their elections? Our elections have been categorized as one of the worst in Africa. And even if you ask me as a Nigerian to vet, I will admit, because I've been going to other countries. I'm not saying things don't happen in other countries, but we really need to improve our standard of elections. A country like Tanzania, presidential elections don't even challenge in court. Though all of us who have been leading international observation missions who have recommended that that is not the best. Even for presidential elections, the matters will go through the court process. Let people who lost the election be convinced that they lost the election. Otherwise, one day the country can implode. If somebody just boxed into a corner, you cannot even complain. It's not the best. Allow that person the leeway to complain. So to me, our own is quite good. For presidential elections, you go through two stages, appeal court and Supreme Court. For governorship elections, unfortunately, go through 3 stages, but I believe that aspect of the Constitution or the electoral laws will be amended. 3 stages too much.
I remember during your period, one of those recommendations of the Uwais panel report was for the appointment of the Inec national chairman by the National Judicial Council, of which your cabinet then said it wasn't going to accept that recommendation. What would you prefer as a solution? Should we continue to have the president appoint the Inec national chairman, or should the National Judicial Council be in charge of appointing national chairman of Inec going forward?
If you look globally, setting up the electoral management bodies are divided into 3 broad groups. One, the president appointing everybody just like in Nigeria. I also appointed. You appointed the chairman, you appointed all the national commissioners and the resident electoral commissioners by president, who is a politician, who has a political interest to protect. Some countries go to the extreme, where a completely neutral body appoint everybody. The president has no role in it. Some countries blend. A neutral body recommends people, then from which the president select. So before you are selected, you already pass a basic level of screening. In fact, what I wanted to do if I had stayed in office was that if the Jigas tenure had expired, then I wanted to vote. And I would take people by surprise. I would have called traditional rulers, not all of them, the religious leaders, civil society, the journalists, at least 100 of them into a room. They will not know we get the computers and so on and so forth. Say, okay, nominate a Nigerian you think should be Inec chairman. Everybody will nominate. Then we screen. Then we'll go for another round of nomination. Even if we sleep that for the whole night, so the whole day and night, we'll be reducing until we get to somebody who everybody will say, this is this person. I wouldn't even want to give it to any particular department of government or an institution. I wouldn't want to say NJC or CJ, because everybody has an interest. So the best thing is not to get a constant team that will be appointing. But any time that Inec chairman position expires and want to change them, then you just call people. So during that process of selecting these people, one may emerge as the national chairman of the Inec. Then from there you appoint the commissioners. From there you appoint the resident electoral commissioners. So you see that their selection is broad-based.
And just before I let you go, Your Excellency, what's your wish for Nigerians as we go into this new democratic dispensation? And if there is any advice for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima?
One advice I will give, and I believe most of that will give them, is that the journey towards election passed through two major stages, the party primaries and the main general election. And all these stages, there used to be a lot of fireworks. To become the candidate, a lot of the fireworks, people will offend you. Finally, people will offend you, especially these days of social media, people write whatever they like. Sometimes it could be painful when you read such stories.
First of all, I want to congratulate the country for going through this process of democratization, which is quite good. For the incoming administration, I like to congratulate the president and his vice president. I know that the president is a very skillful politician. He needs all his political skills to unite a polarized nation. He needs it, and I wish him well as far as that is concerned. Secondly, the country is rich with a lot of economic experts, economic advisors. There are so much that some of them are serving other countries. He should bring them together to help him manage the economy of this country. Thirdly, my advice also to him will be, as President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, he needs to have a good look at the Armed Forces, to reorient them, retrain them, and reorganize them for this, because he is the Commander-in-Chief. He has to do that because the Armed Forces had undergone a lot of processes that needs to be put together and make it an efficient, well-led armed forces. His fourth area that I believe he should pay attention to in the public service, it needs reorganization, reorientation, and so on. It's by no means a very Herculean task, but as I said, he's a very skillful politician, and he will need all this political skill to bring about to bear on these areas that I touched.
Do you have any advice, so to speak, for his opponents at this time?
Well, they are all Nigerians, and whatever anybody does for the good of Nigerians, I think there should be no opposition. It should be accepted.
Good. So, looking at the democracy, Nigeria since 1999, how would you, assess the evolution of the democratic process since that period of time, from that time to now?
Well, the evolution is good. It started very good, but, and this is a very strong but, there are a lot of mishaps on the process. For example, monetization of the process, I think is not good enough. We should try to avoid that. We should try to concentrate on issues that are good for the country and good for the people of this country. And you judge and assess people based on their credibility, their background, and also their knowledge.
So, following from what you just said now, what do you think we can do to enhance our electoral process? We just saw the 2023 general elections. It came with some of its own flaws and issues. What do you think we can do moving forward to ensure that we have, a better electoral process?
Well, I think we have to reform the contest. For example, we talked about voter education. But I think we should go further. I believe that we had 95 million registered voters, according to what we have. But those who voted are far less than half of the population. I think if we say, for example, based on what we have, 45 million voters registered, we ought to have at least 95 million voters registered. We ought to have at least 45 million, half of those that voted, to be an acceptable standard of. If we don't reach that, I think there is nothing wrong in doing a rerun.
Why do you think people are not turning out for elections in the country, from what you just said?
Yeah, well, I also feel there is too much work on Inec, too much burden. When you talk of voter education, you should allow the people, the institutions, whose job it is to educate the people in the country. Inec may not be the necessary body to do that. There are bodies within there are institutions within our country that should be able to provide that education to the voters. So we should allow them to do it. I think it will increase the number of people who are going to participate in this.
So the new government, the new administration is coming at a time when Nigeria seems to be faced with a lot of challenges in the economic front. High inflation, unemployment, reduced foreign direct investment. As someone who has taken charge of this country, what advice do you have for the incoming administration on how best they can tackle some of these issues?
Like I said earlier, this country is blessed. We have virtually answers to every problem as far as human resources are concerned. The economy, I told you, we have the best in the country, so much that some of them are serving other countries. We should tap them, we should bring them and use them to help the new administration redesign the whole economic process. We tried it, and I know it's tough, but we succeeded now. Looking back, thank God on the measures we have put in place today, people are enjoying the free market drive.
As someone who has been in charge of Nigeria, tell us how...
For 2 times.
Yes, 2 times. Now, tell us exactly how tough is the job of being Nigeria's leader?
Tough?
Yes, how tough is it?
No, people see it as tough, But once you realize that you have got very bright citizenship who will always tell you no, who will always disagree with you, then it's not going to be tough, because you know you can anticipate them, you can expect what they are going to say. Once you know that, I think you make it simpler for yourself.
Now, what would be your wishes for the new administration, your best wishes for the new administration?
Well, I wish them well, and I wish them, for everything they do, they think Nigeria first, and the welfare of the Nigerians should remain paramount in their minds.
I need you to speak to Nigerians about a certain subject which has to do with the country's unity. What do you think is missing?
I think leadership is at all levels is what is missing. The leaders tend to know what Nigeria should be, but maybe they need to develop how to get the people imbibe that culture of being a Nigerian. So the leadership has a role to play in this. That we are not doing very well.
Some people have talked about maybe Nigeria needs to have a new constitution.
They need what?
A new constitution. Maybe Nigeria will have to dump the 1999 constitution, come up with a different new constitution, or perhaps maybe go back to how things used to be in 1960. What is your own formula?
Well, I think what you said, that what makes Nigeria unique. If you have a say, Nigerian will provide you with 1 million solution to one problem. And I think all this, we have third civilian constitution, we have a Republican constitution, we have all sorts of things, and a lot of them are there with us here in our country, put up, set up by various committees, various people. All we need to do to study what we have been through. There are a lot of pitfalls in those places. All we need to do is to go back, look at them, and set them right, and we will have no problem. But what we need is patience, to be patient enough at all the time to slowly go through them.
So, looking back, if you had the ability to maybe turn back the hands of time when you were the president of this country, were there things you think you would like to do differently? You would have done differently?
Well, I think there are a lot of things when you were in the position I was before. These things come about after listening to people, that what you did was this, what you did was bad, what you did was good. Then maybe if you reflect, you will say, maybe the people are right. I would have done this differently. But quite frankly, with the people I had, there is not much I could say that I want to do differently. We've tried.
So, do you have any regret whatsoever? Do you have any regret whatsoever?
Regret?
Yes.
No. Rather, to thank the Nigerians for trusting me with the enormous task of running the country. And they tolerated me for whatever they thought was my shortcomings.
Now, sir, I need you. You are our father. You are the elder statesman. You are our elder statesman. And Nigeria is moving forward. But on Monday, we're going to have a new government put in place. Give the country, a nation, an advice on how to push forward.
The only advice I can give them is to be patient and continue to support the new government. But they shouldn't hesitate. If they saw things going wrong, they should cry out as usual to try objectively and constructively to criticize, accept, or praise the government if they have done anything good or right.
Nigeria has a number of challenges, especially in the economic front. High inflation, reduced foreign direct investment, there is unemployment, and these are very huge burden waiting for the new administration. How best would you think they should address and tackle some of these issues?
No, those are the burning issues now. The best option to tackle this is to open up the economy more. You have people who are very resilient, people who are hardworking, and you can direct them to whatever objectives you set for the country because they will be willing. They have. This is why politics is good. You want them to do certain things, but you have to convince them. So the government should be able to give Nigerians a direction on unemployment and solving the problem and that will probably work.
So lately, the country that you governed, that you were the leader of, had been going through another serious challenge. This time, on the security front, we've had plenty of security challenges, and it's as if the country doesn't know how to go out of it. As a former president of Nigeria and a general in the Nigerian army, what advice would you give? How do you think we can solve all of these issues of banditry, kidnapping, even terrorism?
At the initial stage when we started talking, I talked about paying attention in the armed forces because I know these problems tended to overwhelm the armed forces. So you need to look, as a commander-in-chief, he needs to look at the entire setup of the armed forces. The purpose will be, they are members of the Nigerian society. They are also vulnerable to all the bad things the society is doing. But they are very small when compared with the population. So that's why I said the president should, as a commander-in-chief, to look at his whole structure outfit, armed forces, to retrain them, to reorganize them, and to give them a new sense of orientation on how to run an armed forces and security. Once that is done, the next thing is also to make sure that the leadership within those armed forces are truly well informed about the country. They know what the country stands for, what the country is expected of them as far as their allegiance is to the country, and so on.
Do you have any doubt about Nigeria's greatness?
No, I don't.
Bod TV board. In case the first time you come here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more uploads.